Hello everyone and welcome to episode 46 of Generation GC, silver screen romance from Cardiology, Good Charlotte's fifth album released in 2010 with Jim Lorino, who makes music as Scoopski. My name's Molly Hudelson, I'm your host. Last week we talked about Broken Hearts Parade from Good Morning Revival. In a few days we'll have a bonus episode covering something that's not a Good Charlotte studio album track. And next week on Wednesday we'll be talking about a song from Youth Authority. Scoopski is currently a solo music project based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Their sound has been described as Weezer meets Good Charlotte, which is fitting considering that they, along with the Beatles, are the project's biggest inspirations. Scoopski writes songs about all different aspects of life, with lots of nerdy pop culture references coupled with crunchy guitars and pop hooks. Scoopski's debut album, Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia, is available to stream on all music platforms. Scoopski plans to release more music soon, including another full-length this year, and hopefully play some shows if COVID permits. Well, folks, this is the second episode of 2021, and lordy, what a week. With just a few weeks till inauguration, rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol building. And quite honestly, I don't want to say I'm entirely shocked by this because the past 4 years have shown how violent and how reckless the far right will be. As of the time I'm recording this intro, per the BBC, 5 people died and there were 82 arrests. I don't want to go too deep into the whole situation on the show, but I do want to remind you of 2 very important subjects that I often bring up. The first is how Black Americans are treated by police in comparison to white Americans. All over my timeline on social media, people have been sharing images of a predominantly white group of Trump supporters trying to enter a U.S. governmental building, the conditions and security or lack thereof that they faced, versus the armed security that would show up at even the most peaceful Black Lives Matter protests. It's a pretty stark comparison, and it's not to say that these people should have been shot, maced, harmed in any way. It's that no one should be, that Black people should not be shot, they should not be killed, they should not be maced, they should not be assumed guilty for no other reason than their skin color. The second is anti-Semitism. There's one photo going around of a man wearing a shirt that says Camp Auschwitz, concentration camp, and another photo with a shirt, I believe it was a shirt saying 6MWE, and that stands for 6 million wasn't enough, which refers to the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust. We talk about Black Lives Matter and we talk about anti-Semitism each week, and it's definitely played out, I think, pretty starkly in a lot of ways with the events of the past week. To reiterate and to be abundantly clear, I do not support Trump. I do not support any of the right-wing and conservative groups that showed up to the Capitol this week. I do not support the hate that's been displayed in many ways. I don't support any of these hate groups. The news can be really overwhelming. And look, I don't want to turn this podcast into more of the news, and that's why I'm not going into extreme detail about it, but this is a major event that I didn't feel I could ignore. And I wanted to say that if it's hard for you to concentrate on work, school, or anything else in life right now, you are not alone. Whether that's, it's hard to concentrate because you are trying to watch the news, or it's just hard to concentrate because knowing what's going on, even if you haven't been reading or watching 24/7, you know what's going on, and it just seems so much bigger than anything else in a lot of ways. I hope that this podcast, if nothing else, can be some entertainment to distract you for the next hour or so. It's important to stay informed, but please remember to take care of yourself too. Finally, as I bring up every week, stickers. The first batch of Generation GC stickers have all been sent out. More are being ordered. So you can still get stickers, although it'll probably be a little bit of time, especially considering the current state of the USPS. But yes, if you want stickers, you can still get them, and then I'll send you stickers as soon as we have them. So number 1, you can go to anchor.fm/generationgcpod, POD, and click support, and that just helps me keep the show going. All of the money I make from both the Anchor supporters as well as the pre-roll Anchor sponsorship, it all goes right back into the show itself, whether that's buying headphones, ordering the actual stickers, any kind of cords or adapters that I need. That's what all the money goes to. It's all towards supporting the show itself. And number 2, you can make a charitable donation. There's a lot of great organizations listed at blacklivesmatters.card.co. Any amount, whatever you are comfortable giving. And then you're going to take a screenshot of either your support of the show or your donation and send that to me along with your mailing address. And then as soon as I have the stickers, I will send some your way. That's about it for the intro. Now on to episode 46. And like I said, I hope that for the next hour or so, this podcast can keep you entertained.
Okay, so Silver Screen Romance, track 4 on Good Charlotte's 5th album, Cardiology, released in 2010. As we've noted, many times when we talk about this album, it was their only album on Capitol Records and their last album pre-hiatus. Track 3 on Cardiology was Counting the Days. Track 5 was Like It's Her Birthday. I think that's a pretty good run, I think. A lot of just very high energy songs, very, very fun. Mm-hmm. So this was not a single. And as I'm gathering my notes together, I'm prepared to type that it's never been played live. But in fact, it has. I guess I really messed up by not going to the Cardiology tour. So,
here.
Yeah. So,
Same here.
I was in college and it was I was away when it was in Ohio and it just didn't happen. But so setlist.fm has 54 sets that they've played this song, placing it ranked 20th on their most played songs, which is wild to me. Mm-hmm. So wild.
Crazy, because I've never heard it live.
Right.
I've seen them five or six times and just never heard it.
So it seems that it was played on the Cardiology tour in the US, and they played it in Europe and Australia, including some festivals kind of around that time. So a lot of 2011. And I think there were a few Australia shows in 2012 when they were technically on hiatus, but playing a few shows down there. Mm-hmm. So but they really did not play it outside of that. I don't think they've played it at all since then.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I also never went to the Cardiology tour. I'm not sure why, really, just never got around to it. But, I saw them on the Youth Authority tour, and don't think they played it then.
No.
And before that, I'd seen them on the Good Morning, or I think the tour right before Good Morning Revival came out with, they played with the Pink Spiders.
Yep.
Remember that tour? Yep.
It was fall 2006. Yeah.
Yep. I think Keep Your Hands Off My Girl had just come out.
Yeah, and I think they played Misery on that tour too.
Yep. Yes,
I remember
because
I remember hearing Misery live for the first time. I heard that song for the first time live, and I hadn't heard it recorded yet.
Yeah, but obviously I just missed it. I just never got to hear the song live.
Amazing. Yeah, unfortunate, but so. The lyrics to the song were written by Benji and Joel Madden, music by Benji. And if you bought the Best Buy version of Cardiology, you got 5 bonus tracks, which were Catherine, Damn the Situation, Accident Prone. You got Silver Screen Romance Acoustic, and then 2 covers, Better Run by Army of Me and Between the Bars by Elliott Smith. I feel like those covers, especially Elliott Smith, were kind of foreshadowing what Benji and Joel would do with the Madden Brothers stuff, but that's a story for another day. This song also gets mentioned in the Amazon page of a Betty Davis biography called Betty Davis by Katie Holborn, and it just says, Betty Davis is, just to mention a few, name-dropped an iconic, trailblazing superstar Madonna's hit Vogue, in influential rock band The Kinks' Celluloid Heroes, in hit pop-punk band Good Charlotte's Silver Screen Romance, in boy band LFO's The Girl on TV, and in Grammy, Golden Globe, Oscar, and Nobel Prize-winning artist Bob Dylan's Desolation Row. Of course, relevant that Betty Davis is name-dropped in this song.
Yep.
Hence the inclusion on that.
Never realized she was in so many songs.
I know, but I'm not surprised because I feel like she's just very iconic for the time.
Absolutely. Yep.
Before we dive deep into Silver Screen Romance and talk a little bit about Betty Davis and Cary Grant, Jim, I want to help our listeners get to know you.
Sure thing.
So when did you first hear Good Charlotte, and what were your first thoughts on them?
Yeah, I have a very, very, very vivid memory of the first time I heard them.
Okay.
So I was I want to say 12 years old. I'm dating myself now. Crap. But I was in my room listening to my Walkman, and I had an FM tuner on my Walkman. I don't know if you remember. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Crappy pair of headphones, FM tuner on my Walkman. I'm listening to a Philly, I want to say it was a pop station back then. And I just hear them say, here's a song by a band called Good Charlotte. And I'm thinking it's kind of a funny name for a band.
Right.
Then the drums kick in for Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And I'm just gripped, and I'm like, where's this going? And
yeah.
The vocals start, and I'm like, okay, this is really, really cool. This is a really cool song. And then the chorus hits, and I'm all in, and I just fell in love with it completely. Now at the time I was kind of just more of like a radio pop person. I'd download whatever was,
so they were kind of your intro into the even though they were on the radio, they were your intro into like more of the alternative stuff.
They were absolutely, yeah. So I had a 8th grade field trip coming up, and it was to Washington D.C. And it was going to be a long bus ride, and a lot of my friends were telling me like, oh yeah, like I'm going to pick up an album and listen to it on the way there. And I'm thinking like, all right, I got to go get Good Charlotte's album. So so my mom took me to FYE the day before the trip. I got The Young and the Hopeless. I listened to it the whole way on the trip and the whole way back, and I just fell in love completely. And from there, I went back and listened to their first album, loved that. I looked into all their contemporaries, like Simple Plan, Newfound Glory, got all totally into pop punk. I had already been familiar with like Sum 41 and Blink-182 a little bit, but I hadn't gone too deep into them, like their albums or anything. But no, it was all Good Charlotte, completely. And then the thing that made me want to start playing music was actually seeing them live for the first time, because that was my first rock concert. So they were completely my stepping stone band.
Yeah.
100%. They weren't just a band I liked, they were the band.
I have to say it is incredibly fitting that you're listening to The Young and the Hopeless for the first time, it sounds like, on the road from Philadelphia, first city that played GC on the radio many years ago, to Washington, D.C.
Totally. Yep.
Essentially their hometown.
Yeah.
That's very fitting.
Yeah, it didn't dawn on me till a little bit later that how funny that was.
So where was it that you saw Good Charlotte for the first time?
It was at the Wachovia Center. It was called the Wachovia Center at the time in Philadelphia. It was the Young and the Hopeless tour in 2003 with Mest and Goldfinger. It was pretty funny because at the time, it was my first show I'd ever been to. I was like 13, and Mest, I remember, had like a little bit of a potty mouth on stage, and my mom was kind of like, oh my goodness. But looking back, it's pretty funny to think of that. But yeah, it was a good show, and that was it. That was my breaking point into rock music. So
I love that. So, and now you are a musician.
Yep.
You have this project called Scoopski. Am I saying that correctly?
That's correct. Yep.
So what are the origins of this project?
So like I was saying, after seeing Good Charlotte live for the first time, I started playing music. I actually started out playing drums. And I played drums in a couple bands, from, 2005 to 2009-ish. But, around 2008, I also got a guitar for the first time, and I started writing my own songs. And then my third band I was in, I actually stepped out from the drum kit and became a lead singer, and we performed some songs that I had wrote. And really, it had been, I want to say, a long time. My third band was active from 2011 to 2014. We kind of stopped, and I really didn't do anything with music for, I want to say, 4 or 5 years, really. But my wife and I finally bought a house, and I didn't really have space to like play loud music because we lived in an apartment before, and now I have this like, you know, nice basement and I have space, and I just kind of one day last summer just picked up my guitar and I was like, do I have anything like, you know, I want to do? And I just slowly realized I have a lot more I want to say and record and put out to the world. So I just started a little thing, and the name is I'm not sure if you're familiar with the show Impractical Jokers at all.
I've heard of it. I've never watched it.
It's kind of a joke from that show.
Okay.
So that's where the Scoopski name comes from. I always kind of liked you know, bands with or artists with like just a one word phrase, you know, that just kind of gets stuck in your head. So
well, and that's something that like I, you know, having not ever watched Impractical Jokers, I'm like, ooh, I'm like, what is this? But I feel like it's something that anyone who has watched the show would probably like pick up on and be like, oh my God, that's so cool. I need to check this artist out.
Yeah. So it's kind of a nod to Impractical Jokers, and so
amazing.
Yep.
So whenever I have a musician on the show, I always like to ask, how has Good Charlotte influenced you?
In every way, I want to say, just the way they write songs, that I feel like they're always like melody first in a way. And that's just always the way I've been with music. It's like lyrics are very important to me. Don't get me wrong. But like, I write a lot of songs that are like heartfelt and serious, but I also write a lot of songs that are kind of a little like cheesy. I'm not afraid to admit they're cheesy. And I think Good Charlotte has their share of those too. But the one thing I always want to ensure is that the melody's there, because I think that's the glue that holds songs together. Their harmonies, I always really liked how Benji and Joel, when they sang together, it was kind of hard to tell them apart at times. I mean, you can tell, but like, and one thing about their albums is they always mix their harmonies very, very loud in the mix compared to other bands of their genre.
That's a very good point, yeah. And
I always really liked that. And that kind of like, I always appreciated that. Like later on in my life, I got into the Beatles a lot, and you know, John and Paul do the same thing. Their harmonies and their lead vocal, you can kind of not tell them apart sometimes because they're both like the same volume, and I just always like that. So I think that's one thing that differentiates Good Charlotte to me from other pop punk bands. Also, I like how they don't really stick to one style on every album. They always change it up, and I love that too. I love variety in songwriting. So
I love that. That's the point about harmonies, I think, is a very good point. And you know, just have been very inspired the past few months to like go back and listen to a lot of non-Good Charlotte stuff from kind of around the same like early 2000s time. And I think that's something that continues to stick out, and that, you know, definitely makes sense to me why you would also say the Beatles are a big influence.
Yeah.
You also mentioned in your bio to me that one of your favorite bands and biggest influences is Weezer.
Yes.
So relevant to mention, Good Charlotte has done a bunch of Weezer covers, including Buddy Holly and Say It Ain't So. It looks like this was around 2011, mostly in Australia. I'll be honest, I've never been a Weezer fan. I just don't get it. So tell me about Weezer. What do you love about Weezer, and like, what Weezer tracks should Good Charlotte fans check out?
Okay, so I will say there's also another funny one. If there's a video from 2000 of Benji and Joel, I think they're at a mall somewhere, and they're covering a Weezer song called El Scorcho.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think it's before their first album came out, and it's a good cover. I had a recording of it on LimeWire back in the day. But as far as Weezer goes, they might be a tough sell to some people. I've known a lot of people who just could never get into them. To me, they just make really well-crafted like pop rock songs. Rivers Cuomo, the lead singer, I'm sure you've heard his name.
Oh yeah.
Nowadays he's kind of hit or miss as a lyricist, but back in the day, their first two albums were really strong, like lyrically. They're always a really big influence on a lot of pop punk and emo bands that came out in the 2000s. I wouldn't really call them pop punk or emo, but they were very, very influential in that sort of music. They're kind of like, I would say they're kind of like adjacent to pop punk, but they're like a little bit, like I think the genre people usually stick with them is power pop, which is usually, it's kind of like pop punk, but it's
Power
a little more like, yeah.
Well, it's like pop punk without the punk.
Yes,
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
That's still has some rock, but it's without the punk.
Yeah, I mean, some of the bands that people put in that category are like Weezer, Fountains of Wayne. I've heard the Pink Spiders consider that, but they, Weezer they have a lot of overlap with like fans of like Green Day and Jimmy Eat World, but then they also have overlap with like bands like Cake and They Might Be Giants, like alternative bands, like, so they're kind of hard to pin down. They have a quirky sound.
Do you know the band You Blew It?
No, I think I've heard of them though.
So they broke up a few years ago.
Okay.
I actually think some of them live in Philly now.
Oh.
Because I know I have like seen some of them like at shows in Philly, like even before moving here. But I had seen them at Fest do a Weezer cover set on Halloween.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So definitely proof that Weezer there is at least emo adjacent.
Oh yeah, I mean their Pinkerton album is usually lumped in with emo albums. Like people just kind of consider that an emo album, which I can understand. But yeah, they're a tough band to pin down. I think you either just love them or you don't, and I do for whatever reason. Yeah. They're just always my pretty much my number one, I want to say.
So would you say Pinkerton would be the album that like maybe a good Charlotte fan should check out if they hadn't been like familiar with Weezer?
It's definitely it's a tough one to start out on, I'll say that.
Okay.
I guess I would probably just start with the Blue album, which is their first. Okay. And then maybe move on to Pinkerton. So
okay,
that's probably the way I would go.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So before we officially started the show, I mean, we chatted a little bit about Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. You've lived here, it sounds like, your whole life. I literally just moved here. What are your favorite Philly venues to both play and to attend shows?
Yeah, so I actually, funny enough, I actually grew up in a suburb outside of Philly for most of my life.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. I kind of just, ballpark and say Philly, but now I do live here. I've lived here for the past 5 years. My favorite venues, I would say to play, there was a venue called the Trocadero.
Oh, yeah. Is that not around anymore?
It's not around anymore.
Oh.
I want to say it closed down a few years ago, which is terrible because it was my favorite place to play. I played there many times and really fun place, just a great atmosphere. And I want to say my favorite place to go to shows nowadays would probably be the Fillmore. I just I like it there. So
I like the Fillmore a lot, and I've only had the food like once or twice, but it's good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, never tried their food. I'll have to try it.
So you just put out the album Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia early November.
Yes.
So had this album been started like pre-COVID, or did the whole thing come about like during lockdown and all?
Yeah, so it's kind of I'm calling it my debut, but I actually had kind of had an album and an EP out before this, and I kind of really wasn't happy with everything on them, and I kind of decided to like rebrand a bit. And what I did was I took the best songs, songs that people liked the most from those two, and I kind of put them together. And the ones I wasn't happy with, I kind of scrapped them. And
Gotcha.
I took the best songs, kind of remastered them a bit, and decided to put out Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia, which is really, it's despite the origins of the phrase, it's not meant to be any political jab or anything like that. It's just kind of, I just thought it sounded funny, and when I heard the phrase, I actually just envisioned what's on the cover of my cats shooting lasers out of their eyes at the Philly skyline, which I just thought was funny. So I had to.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
So was there any like new songs recorded for it, or is it like entirely stuff that you had previously written?
It's basically everything on it has been recorded from between July 2019 to June of this year.
Okay, so it's not like old stuff. Like,
not old.
It's
no.
maybe previously written or released, but okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I want to say like half of the songs I worked on during when COVID hit, because I was fortunate enough to have a job where we were not coming into work, but I was still getting paid, which is, I'm very lucky.
That's pretty nice. Yeah.
Very, very lucky. So I did have a lot of free time. So about half the songs were put together then, and the other half were before COVID. So it's just 12 songs that I like the best, and they're out there.
Amazing. Well, let's dive into Silver Screen Romance.
Sure.
So, Jim, we connected over Instagram a couple months ago. I'm not surprised that this is the song you're into after like listening to the album, but why did you want to talk about Silver Screen Romance in particular?
So I always like songs with like pop culture references.
Yes.
That's something I always really liked. And this song, I remember before Cardiology came out, bands always used to like have like clips of their albums that you could listen to on like Amazon and other sites like that. And I used to just listen to clips of Cardiology like every day before it came out. And this is the
when
one
you would get like the 10-second clips before you buy the song on iTunes kind of thing.
Yep, exactly like that. And this is the one I just always used to listen to and think like, wow, I can't wait till that song comes out. And then it came out and it totally didn't disappoint, because it's just like such a rock solid song in every way. It's just, I love the melody, the harmonies, the lyrics, just everything about it. And I just associate it with a really good time in my life, because in 2010, when this came out, I had just recently gotten my driver's license, and
amazing.
Yeah. I was playing music a lot. I had a solid group of friends, so it was just a good time in my life. And that's kind of what the song's about too. It's just about a good time period. And so
yeah. Well, let's talk about what the song means. So I want to hear what you think it's about, and I'll share what I think it's about, and then after that we can dive into what the band has said.
Sure. Well, I get from it that it's a love song. And he's just kind of in the lyrics just describing, a really emotionally stable time, kind of like, the Great Depression's over, Prohibition's over, let's stay young and just live carefree and be happy. And, it's just a happy love song, and it's about living with no worries to me. That's kind of what I get from it.
Yeah. I definitely think it's a love song. I feel like there's a big element of romanticizing the past, like 1940s, 50s, kind of this idea that like life is simple and maybe love is easier and things just kind of make more sense. Although I will admit maybe that's like the slight cynic in me about things that are super romantic. But yeah, I think it's thinking about a time when things were just really looking up, and the feeling of relief, I feel like, is also super applicable now. Like,
sure.
What I wrote in my notes was like, when you're so ready for that time where you can just breathe again, both figuratively and literally.
Sure.
Like when we don't have to worry about COVID, and when we can also like not have to wear masks everywhere and all that.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's, celebrating kind of that golden age of Hollywood kind of time.
This song is can be very applicable to what's hopefully on the horizon once this virus is gone, and when people can get back to living their lives again, because this year has been the opposite of that. It's been pretty awful for a lot of people. So
yeah, I mean, you have been lucky with work. I have been very grateful to have a job that I've been working from home, which allowed me to move to Philly because I am working from home. But it's definitely been hard for a lot of people. And even despite whatever advantages anyone might have, it's still like just such a challenging thing, I think.
Absolutely.
Overall.
For sure.
Let's let's talk about what the band has said about this song. And I found like a couple different interviews about it, which was pretty nice. It's always nice to find a lot of things like from the band talking about a song. So there was a track by track with alternative press that Benji did in 2010. I love those, by the way, track by track.
Oh yeah, I love anything that goes like super in depth with songs, which is actually why I love this podcast.
Yes.
By the way,
that's why I wanted to do it.
yeah, for sure. So yeah.
So Benji told Alt Press that this song is written about true love, a love each member of the band has with someone or something. It's about how the ups and downs show the strength of love. The dream is to make it last forever. Yeah.
Very nice. I agree.
Benji told Spin about the song in a Q&A that it is a classic Good Charlotte song. It's one of my favorite songs on the record. It's a metaphor for where our country is with the recession and the economy. We look back to the Depression and its recovery. We're telling people, hey, the storm's almost over.
There you go. And and that can, hopefully relate to where the country is going to be again when next year,
yeah.
So
it's my friend and I just got coffee with a friend who, lives in the same neighborhood I do. And we walked to a coffee shop nearby, and she was wearing a hat that she bought when we went to Sad Summerfest last year. And, they had planned it for July 2020, and then they like pushed it back to like summer 2021. And we were both like, do you think that's going to happen next summer? And we were both like, no, but they'll probably just keep our money at this point, which is like,
that's where I'm at.
Pisses me off, but I also I kind of get it, but it also kind of pisses me off.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with the Hella Mega Tour, which got rescheduled for next year. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I know. Like I have tickets. My big one is I have a ticket for My Chemical Romance in New Jersey because I was, still living in New Jersey, and it wasn't crossing my mind that I would be living in Philly. But I'm even kind of doubtful that would happen. By next September, 20,000 people in a room,
yeah, I guess we'll see how things go. Best hope. So,
I feel like the winter will be tough because you won't be able to do things outside as much. But who knows what spring will look like and what kind of events or socially distant outdoor kind of things might happen by then.
Yeah, for sure. It's all, we were saying, people I know were saying back in May, once this is over in the summer and then,
right.
Summer's come and gone.
Well,
and
we thought, I remember thinking, 4th of July, everything will be open again. And that's going to be just such a big party weekend.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. Didn't happen. Yeah.
Nope.
So.
Nope.
Yeah.
One last quote kind of about the song I wanted to share was an interview that both the twins did with MTV, and this is from Benji. Benji loves talking about this song.
Yeah, he does.
He said, one of my favorites is a song called Silver Screen Romance, and it's totally the Good Charlotte return to pop punk. I don't think we could have written this song a few years ago, but it's a feel-good song. It just sounds like classic Good Charlotte to me. So it's funny to me that it is a little funny to me that people will talk about how this song is so pop punk, because I don't know if I've necessarily have felt that it's pop punk. Mm-hmm. More power pop-ish almost.
Yeah, maybe that's what draws me to it. Like I said, I have a soft spot for power pop, but I do agree with him that it doesn't sound like something that could have been on Good Morning Revival.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not that.
It's too optimistic for that, for one.
Yeah, for sure. And then, I also don't know if it could have been on the first album either, though. It's maybe, but I think it's a happy medium between all their past styles. So
yeah. So this song shouts out Betty Davis and Cary Grant. He says, "You're my Betty Davis. I'm your Cary Grant." And as background, so Bette Davis and Cary Grant are two actors from basically the golden age of Hollywood. Although Bette Davis, her acting career actually spanned over 60 years total with over 100 credits. Cary Grant's career also lasted a very long time. Bette Davis received 2 Academy Awards. She was nominated for 10. Cary Grant was originally a stage performer in New York and eventually moved to Hollywood in the 1930s. He worked a lot with Alfred Hitchcock. Side note, just little bits that I found on Wikipedia, but Bette Davis was married 4 times and Cary Grant was married 5 times, which like when people say that like, oh, people don't know what real love is anymore and like why are people getting divorced now? And I'm like, that's nothing new.
It's not new.
Like,
no, it's been around.
It's not new. Not at all.
Certainly been around, yeah.
So like I don't know how familiar you were with like this era of film because I honestly was not. But and tell me if you get this impression too, but like from listening to this song, I had just presumed, oh, Bette Davis and Cary Grant were like, if not partners, they like acted opposite each other a bunch of time, like they were co-stars. And that does not appear to be the case.
They did not. Yeah, I looked into it myself, and that doesn't seem to be the case. Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly not familiar with this era either. No. I just kind of, when I listened to the song, I just kind of got what they were going for. I was like, I've heard of these people. Like these are actors from that time period.
They're so well known that even if you don't know the work they've been in, you kind of know who they are.
Right. And I hate to bring up Weezer again, but the thing I got, I also drew a comparison to the song Buddy Holly. Because Buddy Holly and Mary Tyler Moore, they were never a thing either. But
really?
No, they were never a thing.
Good job, Weezer, because
and so it instantly reminded me of that too. Yeah. Like another couple from a different time period. But yeah, I always got what they were going for with it, even though I wasn't totally familiar with the actors themselves.
So I do have to mention this quote that supposedly Bette Davis said this about Cary Grant. This is from purpleclover.littlethings.com, their entertainment section. They had an article on the meanest things that Hollywood stars have said about each other. And they were not really clear on the source of this, so take this with a very large grain of salt. Supposedly, Bette Davis said the following about Cary Grant. He needed willowy or boyish girls like Katharine Hepburn to make him look like what they now call macho. If I'd co-starred with Grant or if Crawford had, we'd have eaten him for breakfast.
I saw that quote. That is quite a burn. That is that's something.
I mean, I don't want to say it's not true, but like I'm curious the origins of that. Right.
I guess maybe they had known each other or known of each other, and
I mean, I'm sure they knew of each other, just being prominent actors in the same time, you know.
Right. But maybe she knew something that other people didn't. Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe she knew like about his reputation or something, you know.
Sure.
Did you have any memories or stories you wanted to share about Silver Screen Romance?
I mean, I don't really have any like stories about it. I definitely remember, as I was saying, like I just gotten my license around the time Cardiology came out, and it's, you know, it was definitely a top volume song, you know, windows down, volume up, just driving around. I definitely remember putting it on an early mix CD I made for my wife at the time. So I guess that's all I really have as far as story of the song, but it's just always been a favorite of mine from the album, and always loved it.
Yeah, I love that. It's a very fun song. In terms of, I like to think about what other Good Charlotte songs like a song kind of relates to. I think 1979 also on this album, even though it's talking about a different decade, gives a similar kind of feel of like talking about a time when like there was true love and things were kind of simpler.
For sure.
I don't know. Can you think of any others that might sort of relate to this song specifically?
You know, as far as like songs that talk about nostalgia,
I guess like 40-Ounce Dream.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yep, grew up on Eazy-E and
Yeah.
MTV, and that time period where he's talking about, I think the early '90s. I want to say he's talking about.
I think so.
But yeah, so that was the only other one I was gonna bring up.
Yeah. Let's read what some critics have said about this song, because it was a mixed bag.
Yeah, it sure was.
Consequence of Sound did not rate this album, but it was pretty clear to me that they were not a fan, at least of this song. Mm-hmm. They said, there are a handful of songs on Cardiology that simply fall flat. When a song does fail on this album, it seems to be in the chorus and in the lyrics. Last Night, Counting the Days, and Silver Screen Romance fall into this category. Joel Madden sings about girls, parties, and nostalgia for American cinema. And while these songs do vary in musical style, they ultimately miss the mark and are rather forgettable. The tracks seem forced, as if the band was not trying to push any sort of envelope and wanted to make sure that the formula they had used in the past, rather successfully, was not broken.
A little harsh, yeah.
Harsh, but it's what I do appreciate about that is that like that wasn't like pulling something out of their ass and just like throwing insults at it. They were like, this is what I don't like about it. This is why it's not good.
That's true. Yeah. I know Good Charlotte, they've never had a great reputation with critics.
No, especially stuff like Consequence of Sound.
Oh, absolutely. Any big publication like that is usually doesn't rate them too highly that I've ever seen. So
Work, WERK.RE compared it to My Chem, another My Chem reference. They said, Silver Screen Romance is akin to My Chemical Romance's poppier moments, done in Good Charlotte's own style, and the result is one of the best songs on the album.
Interesting. I mean, I could maybe see that. It's a little bit of a stretch, but yeah. I'm thinking of a not a B-side, but a song they put out after Danger Days, Ambulance. I don't know if you're familiar with that song.
I'm sure I've heard it.
Yeah, it opens with like a lot of harmonies, just like how this song does. That's the only one I'm really thinking of. But yeah.
We got a bunch of these to get through, by the way. We got a lot of good reviews. Rock Sound said that tracks like Let the Music Play and Silver Screen Romance wouldn't sound out of place next to songs by Forever the Sickest Kids or Out of Sight, but that they're still reminiscent of their early material. I don't know. I honestly was never really very familiar with Forever the Sickest Kids.
Me neither. I've known a couple songs. I want to say there's a song called like She Likes or Bittersweet Love. I think it might be called both of those, actually. I like that song, but I never got super into them. I've had some friends that were into them, but I'd never really heard the comparison with Good Charlotte, to be honest.
Maybe I gotta go do a Forever the Sickest Kids deep dive.
Yeah.
This BBC review, in my notes, I just said, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot. And again, it's one of those, I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I think it's actually like a well thought out critique. Right. It's just kind of a very funny read because it's like a lot. There might be some sumptuous production touches here and there, but you do not come to a Good Charlotte album expecting sonic revelation. And sonic revelation is what you do not get in the main. Okay, fair. Mm-hmm. That's true. What you do get is a bunch of energetic, melodic, fun songs on the themes of love, girls, and, well, more fun. Heck, there's even one called Silver Screen Romance, where Joel wants to pretend to be Cary Grant by tattooing a girl's name on his neck, something the great man would almost certainly never have done. Fair. Very fair. Very good point. It then goes on to goofily reference Prohibition and the Great Depression before embarking on a slightly bonkers choir boy breakdown. See? Fun. I don't agree with that, but like that's fair. Right. Like that's a very fair criticism of it. And that's very fair to point that out about. You know, Cary Grant wouldn't tattoo a girl's name on his neck.
That's true. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah. Sputnik Music. So I'm going to mention these next two reviews because they kind of contrast each other a bit. Sputnik Music, who like just have always said a lot of they've never been very nice to Good Charlotte in the reviews we've read. So they gave the album 1.5 out of 5. And they said that when the album actually kicks in, several things become apparent. One of them is that Joel still hasn't learned to sing. In some places that Joel tries to emulate Billie Joe Armstrong's newfound high range, but on Last Night, it just sounds like someone is twisting his nipples, and they're just painful in Silver Screen Romance. Despite the incident of particularly bad vocals in the middle 8, Silver Screen Romance isn't too bad. Musically, like Chronicles era GC, it has some pretty terrible lyrics, but it is catchy enough to stop this wrecking the song. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually love the vocals on this album. Like, I think
so
the
do
vocals,
I.
like, make this album so good.
I mean, I've always loved Joel as a vocalist. You know, when I see him, you know, when he performs live, he even puts a little more like rasp and like roughness to his voice, which I always liked. But on the albums, he sounds very clean. But I always liked both those sounds, honestly.
Yeah.
So I've always liked him as a vocalist.
Well, in contrast to that, USC's Daily Trojan said the vocal arrangements are about this song. The vocal arrangements are well done, as are the lyrics, with lines such as "Oh, the nights were cold, without you hanging on my arm, it's so good to be home." And then the last review I want to mention, because a lot of people would talk about how this was like returning to their roots, Cleveland Scene said kind of the opposite. So they said, if you're expecting Good Charlotte to return to their pop punk roots on their 5th album, you'll be disappointed. And they continued to say that the tight harmonies in Silver Screen Romance trade punk pretense for skillful pop.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah. It's interesting to me to like look at reviews kind of next to each other.
Sure. They're so, you know, contrasting with each other as, you know. Yeah.
A few Amazon reviews to mention. One user, just like their review was just headlined, so these are like the fan section. They gave the album 3 out of 5. They said it doesn't quite get it right. And they said it doesn't seem to have the heart that Good Charlotte's earlier albums did. Several songs, including Silver Screen Romance, have more of the old Good Charlotte type of sound and are fun enough to listen to. However, they almost feel forced, a little desperate. They don't seem to have the natural feel of classic Good Charlotte stuff.
You know, that's I guess that's fair.
Yeah, and it's also like I could see why you would say that, because like, you know, the first album was like pretty clearly talking about like their own lives, and like this song I think obviously pulls a lot from pop. Like I think this song probably does talk about like very real personal emotions,
sure, but
brings in all these pop culture references that I think could easily place it as like, well, like what are they writing about? Like, what's the feelings they're writing about? Is it personal? Like, right.
It doesn't, I guess to some, it might not come across as sincere as the first album, because it's kind of veiled behind these pop culture references and whatnot. So, well,
and to follow, another Amazon user gave the album and the song 4 out of 5 stars and said that it's the first very solid track of the album and great harmony, but that complex lyrics are a bit tough to follow. Which, I mean, if you don't know who Betty Davis or Cary Grant are, if you don't know about, you know, the war, the Great Depression, and you can't place all of those things.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, well, this song like would not make much sense.
Doesn't make a lot of sense if you don't know that. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to read some YouTube comments too, and we're going to focus on YouTube comments that were on a fan upload of the song by user Some Fan Rock, just because there were a lot more comments than on the band's official upload. So Takashi BM says, "This is Major Golf song."
I saw that and I was like, okay.
I'm curious the background. James Hamilton said, "Amazing song, reminds me of Don't Wanna Stop," which, like, yes, totally, sure. Like the kind of swing kind of feeling of I Don't Wanna Stop.
Yeah, that's true. Sure. I can hear that.
Jen Gone Mad said, please, for the love of all that is right and holy in this world, Good Charlotte, make a video for this song. Could you imagine seeing them all in World War II era getup? LOL.
Would have loved it. It would have been great.
Like a black and white kind of.
Yeah. I mean, I'm even picturing like the MCR video for I think that was World War I, but the Ghost of You video.
Yeah.
I'm picturing that video. That would have been pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
Yeah.
User Chester Joe said it's jokes because the Great Depression is totally starting up again. Which, like, ouch, but true.
Yeah.
And then the last one, Amelia Karina said, what is everyone complaining about that GC change? Maybe they did a little, but I mean, all I hear is old GC.
Sure. Fair.
Yeah, fair. Jim, this has been very fun.
Very fun.
So as we wrap this up, I have a few questions I always like to ask.
Sure thing.
So how has this song in particular held up for you over time?
It's definitely held up to me. From the first time, like I was saying, when I first heard it, just listening to 10-second Amazon clips of it, I was excited to hear it. And then when I've heard the full thing, I always loved it. It's still a song that, when I have my Spotify on shuffle, if it comes on, I'm going to turn up the volume pretty loud and sing along and enjoy it. Definitely, to me, it hasn't lost anything, any luster. I go through periods where I don't listen to Good Charlotte for a little while anymore, but I want to say like at least once or twice a year, I just totally binge on them again and just listen to them nonstop. So it's totally held up to me. I love it completely.
Yeah. Amazing. What has Good Charlotte meant to you over the years, and how has that changed?
Yeah, like I was saying, they were the band. They made me want to play music. They got me into music. They weren't just a band. They were the jumping off point for me. From there I just discovered all of the music I loved. I met fellow musicians. I joined bands.
Yeah.
I even jokingly could say, because in my third band is where I actually met my wife because she played keyboard. So I could jokingly say Good Charlotte's responsible for my marriage, really.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, and luckily she likes him too. She was always more of a Simple Plan person growing up, but she...
Oh, that's the real conflict.
That's right.
Good Charlotte versus Simple Plan.
That's right. I mean, luckily I like both of them, so,
Yeah.
I mean, they've always meant a lot to me, and they always will. They're always one of my big ones. So, I'm very grateful for them to have found them and where I've gone in my life since I heard them.
Yeah. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any last words, Jim, about Silver Screen Romance, about Good Charlotte, about Scoopski, or about yourself?
Sure. I mean, I would just say Silver Screen Romance. It's an amazing song. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've heard it, but it's just a great song off a great album. And Good Charlotte, like I said, I'll always be grateful to them for all the great music they made. As for my music, I guess, if you want to check it out, I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, any streaming service. You can find my stuff. The album Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia is out. And next year I'll have some more songs coming out I'll have another full length album coming out.
Amazing.
Cause I've just been plugging away ever since, ever since I picked up my guitar last year. I've just haven't been able to stop. So I'm just pumping songs out. So
I love it. So Jim, we do a Generation GC and Friends Spotify playlist.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll include Silver Screen Romance, but I'm going to ask you actually for 3 song recommendations.
Oh, okay.
One is one of your own songs that we should include.
Okay.
One is a Weezer song that you want people to listen to. And then just something you've been listening to lately that you want to share with the class. Okay,
sure. Let's see. I guess for one of my songs, I'd pick the song. It's called Mermaid Girl. It's
okay. I like that one.
Okay, thanks. That's the one that people seem to like. It's actually I want to say they're called professional mermaids, sort of.
I've seen those on TikTok, I think.
Yeah. Actually, one of them on TikTok and Instagram, she picked it up on Instagram, and I want to say like about 200,000 people saw it. And
oh my God.
I got a decent bump on my streams on that song since then. So people seem to like that song. So I guess, that's a good one to check out. I would always recommend that one.
Amazing.
Let me see for Weezer. I'm trying to think. Trying to think of one that like Good Charlotte fan would like. I'll go with it's actually kind of a newer one.
Okay.
But it's called King of the World. It's off of it's called the White Album.
Okay.
Not the Beatles White Album, but there's a Weezer White Album too. King of the World. It's it's got a lot of pop culture references, like the song we just talked about. And it's just a good power pop song, and might be an easy one to get into.
Okay.
And then let's see, for something I've been listening to recently. There's actually a band that they've never got big in the U.S., but they were sort of pop punk, but not really. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the band called Busted.
I've heard of them.
Yeah,
but I'm not very familiar. They're UK, right?
Yes, UK. Okay. Very, very, very cheesy, admittedly. But they kind of own it. They put out an album last year, and it's actually like very, very pop punk. It's not
okay.
So they used to be kind of like Blink-182 meets BB Mac. They were kind of like a pop punk boy band, like completely. Like they all sang at the same time. They alternated verses. Very, very cheesy. But they put out an album last year called Halfway There, and there's a song on it called Shipwrecked in Atlantis. And I think Good Charlotte fans would really like that song. And I've been listening to that a lot recently. So I think that's a good one.
Amazing. I will add all of those. Jim, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people keep up with you online?
Thank you for having me. It was an honor to be here. I really like the show. You can keep up with me on Instagram. My Instagram's Scoopski the band. And where else? I have a Facebook page. Don't really have a lot of activity on it, but if people want to find me on Facebook, I'm on there. But of course, I'm on Bandcamp. Bandcamp is scoopskitheband.bandcamp.com. I'm also on Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever else you stream music.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Jim, this has been so great. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for listening to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode on Silver Screen Romance. Last week, we talked about Broken Hearts Parade from Good Morning Revival. In a few days, we'll have a bonus episode covering something that's not a Good Charlotte studio album track, but, related to the band. And next week, we'll be talking about a song from Youth Authority. Thank you all for tuning in. You can follow Generation GC at Generation GC Pod, Pod, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can also follow me, Molly, at M Hudelson, MHUDELSON, on Twitter and Instagram. Please make sure to subscribe to the show, rate, review it on Apple Podcasts, share it with your friend, tell your neighbors. Let's spread the word. Thank you all for tuning in.